most of you will be working on retake work or delta one. But let's start with the quiz. So you should be fixing anything that you did not get correct, writing down anything, making sure it's the correct answer, asking any questions you have, because your test will be very similar to this on Wednesday. So most of us did fine with the number 1 through 4. Write an equation that is parallel to the equation given. So for number 1, the slope needs to be the same. Also, many of you have phones, so I'm going to put those away. So for these, the slope needed to be the same. Then you could have chose any other number as long as it wasn't the same. If you put -3, that was fine. If you put +6, that was fine. Basically anything else that is not +3. 2, some of us got this, some of us did not. You need an equation that has the same slope, so it has to be a y equals with just a different number. Whatever number you want. This can't be the same. But if you put x equals, those two would be perpendicular, not parallel. Questions on 1 and 2? 3, these had to be perpendicular, so you had to flip the slope, change it to a positive or a negative, depending on what it was. So here, this should have been a positive 4/3. You could have kept the y-intercept the same, changed it, it didn't matter. Just the slope had to change. For number 4, remember this is over 1, so when you flip it, it becomes -1/6. X, keep the y-intercept the same, change it, doesn't matter. Questions on 3 and 4. Then 5 through 8. Some of us got these, some of us did not. So with the parallel ones, you had to make sure the slope was the same. And use your point slope, which I'll write back up here. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. You're given your point x1, y1. Completely ignore the y-intercept they give you. You don't need that. It's not part of it. So this one would be y minus 1 equals -3/2 times x minus 2. Some of us did this but started to get incorrect things because we weren't multiplying and checking our math. So this should have been y minus 1 equals -3/2x plus 3. If you didn't get a plus there, double check your math. And then add 1. So that our equation was y equals -3/2x plus 4. So 1 through 4 were 1 point. 5, 6, and 7 were 2 points. 8 we'll talk about why it was only 1. But the work and then your answer. Questions on 5. Six was similar. So if we set it up the same way, it would be y minus a -4 equals -3 parentheses x minus 5. This becomes y plus 4. This becomes -3x. This becomes a positive 15. So some of us got the wrong answer because we got -15. So double check that, be careful. And then subtract 4. So that y equals -3x plus 11 was the final answer for that one. Questions on that one? Right, 7 was hit or miss. If you did not change this slope to positive 1/4, the rest of your work was wrong. So you have to do this first, and then do that same formula. So y minus 5 equals 1/4 times x minus 4. And then distribute. We have y minus 5 equals 1/4 x minus 1. And then add 5 to both sides. So y equals 1/4 x plus 4 should have been that answer. Questions on that one?
On number 6, how is it turned cos before?
Here,
Yeah.
because the two negatives come together make a plus. So if you were to put like this in your calculator, a negative then minus 4, it would come together and make a plus. Great. 8, you could have done one of two ways. One with work, one without work. So I'll show the with work, and then I'll show what you could have done without the work. So first, if it's perpendicular, you need to know the slope of this line, which was undefined. Then you have to take that and flip it so that your new slope is 0. Some of you got to that part. Then, with work, you would be doing the same thing. Y minus 2 equals 0 times x minus 2. This is where some of us got confused. Because 0 times anything is just going to be 0. But some of us put 0x and then it threw off the whole thing. But there's nothing left on this side. It's just 0. So when we add 2, it's just y equals 2. That should have been your answer. So that was the with work. Without doing work, you still have to do that first part. Know that the original slope is undefined. The opposite slope is 0. Using your Hoy bugs, if I know I have a 0 slope, that means my equation has to be a y equals, and you look at your y value, and that's it. Y equals 2. So if you got y equals 2, great. If you got y equals but a different number, you were on the right track but didn't get the right y value. So that one was worth 1 because you could have done that without work. Questions on that one? I will say if it was opposite and it started off y equals 0 and it said perpendicular to that, you could not do work with an undefined slope. You cannot put undefined in here and try to work it out. It doesn't work. So you would have to know your Hoy bucks and do it that way. Or if it says parallel to an x equals, same thing. You cannot do work with an undefined slope. So keep that in mind. This one, some of us got, some of us messed up at the beginning, which messed other things up. But you should have had 3 things. The original, the parallel, and the perpendicular. Some of us had 2 of those and not the third. So the original should have been a equation, or at least show me what the slope was, negative 3x plus 2. That's your original. Then you had to find something that would be parallel. So it has the same slope. Pick whatever number you want. This cannot be the same. Because if it is the same, you have basically created the same line. It wouldn't be parallel. Perpendicular. Flip your slope. Make it positive. Put whatever y-intercept you want. Same, different, doesn't matter. So some of us mixed up the original slope, which messed these up. Some of us didn't put the original slope and only put these 2. Or put this as the parallel. So be careful that you don't do those things. So that one was worth 3 points if you got the original, the parallel, and the perpendicular. Questions on that? Most of us got number 10. Remember that this is one that you could graph. It's negative, so I can eliminate C and A because those are positive. D was the correct answer because it matches the slope. The line, the points surround that line the best, so D should have been that answer. So that one was 1 point. Did you get that right? The other ones I'm going to show on the calculator what you should have wrote and shown me. My calculator, if you want to do this along with me, I already have this in my calculator to save time. So I would have went into stat, I would have went into edit, and I would have put in, ignore that there's 6 things, I have a bunch of stuff going on. I would have put these into L1, L2. So I have those in my L1, L2. And then we're trying to find the line of best fit and then find the length of time for the 15-year-old. So I would go back into stat, I would scroll over to calculate, go into number 4, make sure this is L1, L2, go down and hit alpha trace. And then enter 3 times. Even if it does not ask, you should be putting your line of best fit. That way I know if your answer is wrong, maybe your equation was wrong or something like that. Some of you wrote down everything. Some of you wrote down at least 3 decimals. So negative 12.125. Some of you only put down 2 decimals, and I accepted that. X plus 272.27. So somewhere on there, write your line of best fit. That way, if you get the wrong answer, I can double check. Is it your equation? Is it something else? Then I'm going to put 15 in for X. So 15 STOX. And then go back and grab my equation, alpha trace, enter twice. So 90.39, 90.4, either of those was acceptable. If you put more than 2 decimals, that was also fine. But then you also had to put seconds, put our labels. Questions about that one? So that one was worth 2 points. Did you get the correct answer, and did you show your line of best fit? Number 12. Before you did anything, you should have changed this to 0, and then how many years has it been since the original? If you get anything that ends in a 0, it's just whatever numbers they are. I realized halfway through grading this that some of you got confused with the numbers. This 5 years was talking about these 5 years. That should not have been the number you put in. The 2020 should have been the number you put in afterwards. So, in my stat, in my edit, I have these numbers in my L3, L4. Instead of L1, L2, it will still work the same. So I'm going to go back into stat, go over to calc, number 4. I'm going to change these to L3. There we go. And L4. And then do the same thing, alpha trace, store it at the same place, and so this should have been your equation. Again, 3 decimals, I accepted 2. Round, you could have used all of them. So 0.087 X plus 7.099. This would really round up to 7.10. Or you could have used all of them, either way. So that part was up to you. Right. 2020, that would be 20. So we would store 20 in for x. And then grab the equation, alpha trace, to get 8.84. And you're going to put m in millions up to you. Then you also had to answer, was this interpolation or extrapolation? 20 does not fall in this, so it should have been extrapolation. So that one was 3 points. Did you get the correct answer? Did you answer this correctly? And did you write your line of best fit? Questions on that one? The last one just asked to find the line of best fit. Let me do this one more time. So in SAT, in edit, I have these now in 5 and 6. So I would go back to SAT, scroll over to calculate, number 4, change these to 5 and 6. You wouldn't do this because you're just going to keep putting it back in L1, L2. I just did this to save time. Store in alpha trace, enter 3 times, write it twice. And you would write this equation using 2 or 3 decimals. Y equals 29.414 x plus minus 162.012. And that one was just worth 1 point. Did you get the equation correct? Questions on that? We have time to do one of the workouts before lunch, and then we'll do the rest when we get back to lunch. So we'll do 14 because that's the easiest. Some of us got this one, some of us did not. So 1, you should have labeled your variables. The 17 was M. The 35 was B. The total cost that you're looking for is Y. And the number of hours was X. Also, you had to find the number of hours, which should have been 5.5. So your equation would have been Y equals 17.5 times 5.5 plus 35. Then you would have calculated that. I don't remember what that was. 131.25. So 3 points on this one. Did you label your variables correctly, get your correct equation and the correct solution with your label, which would have been dollars? We will do the other 3 when we come back from lunch. Your phones away. Phones away. 15 was similar. Your variables would have been, this is M. The 1 time B, that's what you're looking for. That's going to be your B at the end.
No, I didn't hear the bell ring.
7 would have been your X or X1. 47 would have been your Y or Y1. Some of you solved this using your slope-intercept form, which works, but I need to see you use the point slope. So this should have been Y minus 47 equals 595 times X minus 7. Some of you were looking at your notes and putting the numbers from your notes and not the numbers from the quiz, which gave you the wrong answer. So be careful. And then get y by itself by adding 47. So that y equals 5 times 5x. Plus 535. So this original would have been your equation. And this would have been your solution from after you solved it. So that one was 4 points. Did you label your variables? Did you get your equation? Did you solve it correctly and get the correct answer? Questions on that one?
How do you distinguish like which variable is which?
M will always say per PER or for each, for every. A one-time thing, something you only do once, like you would only pay this deposit once, you would only do this one-time fee once, that's going to be your B. But in this case, we don't know what B is. X usually is represented with your slope. Cost per gain, so number of gains would be your X, since slope is Y over X. Cost, the Y, total is always Y, so you have to think about things like that. Other questions on that? Okay. This one you could have either done algebraically or in the calculator. Which would you rather see? Calculator or algebraically? Okay. So if you were doing this algebraically, you should have recognized that you're given 4 numbers. 2 of them talk about square footage, 2 of them talk about total costs. So that means you're not given M and B here, you're given like X1, Y1, X2, Y2. So if you were doing this algebraically, you would need to find the slope. L68 over, minus 172, 1172, over 1,000, minus 850. If you do this opposite and you get negatives, think about it's a real world problem, so we really shouldn't have a negative. But also, the more square footage it is, it goes up, so it should be positive. That was 96 over 150, which simplified to be 16/25ths. Or you could put the decimal, 0.64. So either or for that. And then if you were trying to find your equation, you could use either of those ordered pairs and do your point slope. So let's say I do the first set. So y minus 1172 equals, I'm going to just use the decimal here, 0.64 times x minus 850. Someone multiply this, how many do you get? And then if I add this, we should get y equals 0.64x plus 628. So that would have been your equation at the end. However, that only answers half of the question. You still have to go back and find how much the rent would be for a 1,200 square foot office. So you do one of 2 things. If you're doing this algebraically, you would put 1,200 in for x, figure out what that total is, or you could put it in the calculator. Some of us that solved this all the way down, or maybe didn't show this part, got 1396. So that one was also 4 points. Did you label your variables correctly? Did you either show all of this work and this work, or say that you did the line of best fit in the calculator and stored 1200 as X? That would have been the work if you did it in the calculator. Got this equation and this solution. Questions on that one? This was, we either tried this or we didn't. But remember that if you're doing the line of best fit, you could do exactly what you did for line of best fit here. It would be the same steps. Most of us got this one right for those that attempted it. Here you have to remember you're comparing two different things. So you have to use your ax plus by equals c. If you did not use that, you were using the wrong equation. Then you have some choices. So the total value should have been C. Whether you put the number of dimes and nickels as A and B or X and Y was up to you. Let's call that A, let's call this B. And then our X would be the value of the dimes. And our Y would be the value of the nickels. Be careful, some of you put 0.5 instead of 0.05, which changed your entire problem. Then your equation would be putting in all of the numbers. So 46 times 0.10 plus 0.5 times E equals 545. So that would be your equation. Then you would have solved it. 4.6 plus 0.05b equals 5.45. Got rid of 4.6, which was 0.85, I believe, and divided. Some of us got 0.95, so double check the math there. But we should have got 17 nickels. Some of us got 19, I think, because we got 0.95. So just be careful in that. So again, the 4 points were the same. Did you label your variables, set up your equation, solve it correctly, and get the correct answer? Questions on that one?
I was out to access it in the y.
Say that one more time.
They're in the coding down.
They're not.
Like what if you mess it?
They're not x axis and y axis, but whichever.
No, I mean the axis you come first.
It depends. So if I put this as A, then this would come first with it. Or you're talking about in the equation.
No, top one.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. I could have made this B and this A. It doesn't matter. But in the equation, you would be multiplying those first, and then those. I could also switch this. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So I'm going to pass out your test to work on retake work. Use this time wisely to work on retake work. You could potentially get all your retake work and retakes this period so that your grade improves if your stuff is done. If you're not working on retake work, I know almost all of you are missing at least one DELS math that's due on Friday or that was due on the 6th. So you can be working on that. I think I have extra copies of the review, or if you have your review from before we went over, before you guys took the quiz, you could be working on that. Or if you want additional practice, there's some on the shelf. So everyone has something to be working on, especially because your test is next class. So use this time to practice, to study if you're not working on retake work. Give me a second to pass that stuff out.